Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to mix DI bass guitar. We're going to be looking at DI bass guitar today, but before we dive in, if you are ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process as a whole and really start to hone your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process, step by step, to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the guesswork and without any more of the hassle. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and take a look at this DI bass guitar. Okie dokie, here is our bass guitar now. It is just a DI here. You can see I have a couple pieces in on my template already. We're going to disable those and just listen to the DI here. So part of my template is I have this bass folder or this bass group here, and I have a DI track and an amp track. That's in case I get the DI and the amp. In this case, we just have a bass DI. So let's take a listen here through just the bass DI. I'm going to mute our drums out here, and we should be good to go here. Here is our bass DI. Pretty low end heavy. It doesn't sound like we have much top end, so that's probably going to be our main goal here, is getting some top end from this bass, as well as enhancing and keeping the low end strong and powerful, which can be some of the challenges with a DI bass, is that you don't get the top end bite that you want to get the bass to cut through in a mix here. What we're going to start by doing is I'm going to duplicate this entire bass track down. So if you click, hold Alt, click and drag, you can copy or duplicate the same track down in Studio One. So we're just duplicating this bass DI down to my bass amp track, and we're going to put in my EQs here. Well, actually, let's take a listen here to the one on the amp track, and let's see how much top end we actually have. So I have a high pass filter here, which is built in my template to separate the low end and top end on bass. Let's listen to our top end and see what we actually have to work with. Not much top end there to get. What we can try is we can always try using an amp sim. So let's see what we get if we pull in PreSonus says amp sim here on the bass amp. See if we can get or generate any more top end by running it through a bass amp. So let's see what we have here. I thought we had bass cabs. We would have the SVT. We've got these two here at the bottom. Let's try the 2x10. Use the SVT head here. Let's see what we got here on the bass. That's not sounding bad. Let's pull our EQ down and see if we got any more top end. That's not giving us much. So what we're going to do here is we're going to nuke that. We're just going to leave the DI as it is for the moment. What we can do is see if we can push it up to get more of it here. Let's balance it in with the DI, the DI, which I've put our plugin in on, just isolating the low end. So we're rolling off everything above 180 hertz at 24 dB per octave. And then on our amp here, we're rolling off everything below 180 hertz at 24 dB per octave. So here's just the DI, just our low end. We're going to pull up the amp. Okay, we're going to leave that there for the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our amp track completely. We're going to call it bass dist for bass distortion. We're going to solo this up here, and we're going to crush this with the red light distortion. So we're just going to slam this into this and see if we can get some top end. Perfect. Now we have some top end there, or at least some sizzle up on the top end. So all I did was throw the red light distortion on our distortion track here, pulled the output all the way down because I'm going to drive it pretty hard. I moved it to stage 2, so a little bit more aggressive. We are on the hard tube setting, and I pushed the drive up to 10 here. So listen with and without here. So extending our frequency range a little bit, coming up towards 3K there, which is nice. Now we have something we can boost up without getting too much of the noise we were getting on the top end. So let's balance this in with our DI and our so-called amp track here, right? That sounded good right there at -13. It's enough that we get some of that sizzle on the top end without it getting too much of noticeable distortion. Let's start EQing our bass now. So the first move I'm making here might be a little surprising, pulling in our high pass filter up to about 70 hertz. So we've got a lot of low end down here. What I'm going to do for the moment is roll our high pass filter up and reduce some of it so we have room for our top end to breathe. We want to get some top end on our bass so it can cut through the mix. Don't worry, we're going to make sure our low end is nice and strong by the time we're done with our bass here. So let's keep listening here. Little cut here at 180 hertz, so some of that kind of lower mid area that can get kind of nasally sounding. It makes the bass sound nosy sometimes and heavy in this frequency range. So we rolled our Q up to about 280, so narrowing it. And then we're pulling out about 6 dB at 180 hertz just to get rid of that kind of, I don't know, it's nosy sounding at this kind of 200 hertz area on bass sometimes. This is going to make room for our low end to shine through as we boost that up post compression here. And it helps our top end feel a little bit clearer. It might feel like a little bit too much compression at the moment. I'm going to leave it in. I see our bass gets a little bit quieter in some of these sections. So I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the compression. Let's see, we've got this big peak here. Let's see how much we do here. What I actually might do, which isn't something I do often, but sometimes when I get mixed tracks, I like to run it through a little bit of compression beforehand. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here to our bass DI. I'm going to create a layer underneath. So I'm going to duplicate this layer. We're going to call it OG for original. Get rid of layers, follow events. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of compression on the actual audio track before it hits the rest of our processing here. That way our track comes in feeling a little bit more even. So we'll go to this big note here and take a listen. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 dB compression just like that. Just on the loudest note, just so on the way in, there's a little bit of compression. So this is simulating compression during the recording process to get us a more even signal on the way in here. So we can come back here to about... That's feeling pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull up our event effects here. So we enable event effects, and we're going to pull this compressor down, and we're literally just going to render it onto the audio here. So it'll bounce it down for us. Now we have a little bit more even of a bass to start with here. Bounce that, get rid of this compressor, and then we can replace our other two that were just copies of this track here, giving us a more even bass to start with, so we don't have to layer on so much compression just to start here. We'll kick that back in. Jump back to our bus processing here. Throw our EQ on and jump back to our compressor here. Let's keep working with this compressor, and we'll probably pull it back a little bit so we're not going too aggressive here. So a little bit of top end. You can hear that grit now, but you won't hear that once we put it in the mix. The guitars, the drums will absorb that distortion, and all you'll hear is the top end of the bass cutting through. Things are feeling pretty good. Now we're going to make sure our low end's tight. We don't need that window anymore. Okay, that's feeling pretty good there. So what we're doing here is we are compressing, then boosting the low end. This way our bass is even, and we pull up an even low end rather than boosting low end to compression, which would drive our compressor a lot harder. This way we get a solid low end that is consistent through our track. We're getting a little bit of distortion from our actual distortion track, as well as pushing into the compressor like that, which is okay. It's going to help our bass cut through the mix. It's going to help us hear our bass in the mix. And then I went back here and added a little bit more top end. It's feeling pretty good here. We're going to listen through one more time. I started to put it in with the drums a little bit too early like for that. So one more time here on the bass, and I will bypass all of our processing as well as these other two pieces here. So I'll pull out our distortion track. So we'll mute our distortion track, and I will take off our processing here. So that's where we're starting. More low end. So just a touch more at 70. I went a little bit under where I usually boost. I'm usually boosting at about 80 hertz on bass, but it was pulling up too much of this stuff over 100, which I wasn't quite too fond of. So I went a little bit lower. That way we get the boost at the fundamental. We pull up more of that low end. So we don't have a kick drum in this track. So we want to add a little bit more of that lower sub information on our actual bass guitar to make up for that, because our bass guitar is going to be our fundamental power in the low end on this track. So this is how we're mixing a DI bass signal here. One more time, quick review. So we've got two duplications of the track. Here's our original bass DI. We're rolling off everything above 180, so we're making this just our low end. Then we've got a duplication of the DI. We're rolling off everything below 180, so we're making this just our top end. Then we're duplicating it one more time. Same EQ, rolling off everything on the bottom. Then we're distorting it with this red light distortion to get some of that fuzz on the top end that we can pull up to give us a little bit more top end. It was a little lacking up there. Then all three of these tracks are running into our bass bus. Got a little bit of EQ here, pulling out some of that nosiness in the low mid area, rolling off some of the sub. A little boost here in the mids, and a big boost here at 4K, just so we can hear that string noise on the top end again to help the bass cut through the mix and be competitive. Then our compressor, we're doing about 5 dB of compression, and as you remember, I went back and I bounced about 3 dB of compression to that big note across our track. So we have a more even bass going in. This is doing about 5 dB of compression. Slower attack, faster release for this compressor. And then one more EQ, finally boosting our low end at the end here. That way our bass is consistent in the low end and it's powerful overall. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.